Welcome to Study Loop.
All right, so the first part was to compute the correlation coefficient. You could do this by hand. You might be able to use a calculator as well. And I get 0.888 for the correlation coefficient. To determine if it's reasonable to conclude that the population correlation equals 0, perform a hypothesis test at 0.01. And we're going to use 6 degrees of freedom because you use 2 less than. Using the critical value approach, since n is less than or equal to 30, the critical value is positive or negative 3.707. And so we compare it with our critical value. And since 0.888 is less than 3.707, we don't reject the null hypothesis. So there's not sufficient evidence to conclude that there's a linear relationship between speed and price in the population. But we can move forward here. I also get the linear regression equation is 108.982 plus 7.737x. We would interpret the slope so as that represents the estimated price when the speed is 0. In practical terms, since speed cannot be 0 for a laptop processor, this intercept is not interpretable with the within the context of this situation. The slope indicates that for every additional gigahertz in speed, the price of the laptop increases by about $7.74. To find the 95% confidence interval for the mean predicted price when the speed is 2.5, well, first we calculate the predicted price at 2.5. And so 108.982 plus 7.737 times 2.5 is 128.325. And then the standard error would be found by adding up the difference between all of the values of y and their predictors squared over n minus 2. I already went through the liberty of conducting all of that, and that's 2.344. And so the confidence interval is the estimate plus or minus the margin of error, and the margin of error is the critical t, which for 6 degrees of freedom at that 0.05 significance is 2.447 times, actually I'll say this is the critical t times the standard error. So with substitutions, we've got 128.325 plus or minus 2.447 times 2.344. And then we can calculate our boundaries here. And I'll go to the nearest cent. The lower boundary would be from subtracting, and that would be 122.59, and the upper boundary from adding, which would be 134.06.